How long has she been down? Do you have any idea?
Any more than about 20 minutes.
Okay.
It was a night that began with drinks and ended in horror. In the quiet town of Tecumseh, Michigan, Jimmy Allen made a frantic 911 call that would set off a chilling investigation.
911, what is the address of your emergency?
My wife tried to kill herself. She's in the basement.
How is she trying to kill herself?
She tried to hang herself. I ran down there. I pulled her off.
Okay, does she have a noose around her neck right now, or?
She did. I pulled her off. She had a extension cord.
Somebody
Pulled her
call.
off. I tried to get her CPR.
He had just found his wife, Amy, hanging in the basement, unconscious, cold, and barely clinging to life. He claimed it was a suicide, but from the moment officers stepped into that house, nothing felt right. When police arrived, they followed Jimmy's screams down to the basement. There he was, kneeling beside Amy's lifeless body, desperately performing CPR.
Police department! Police department! Yes!
He said she had been like that for about 20 minutes. EMTs rushed in, and Amy was quickly transported to the hospital. But even before the ambulance doors closed, detectives sensed that something was off.
Come upstairs with me real quick. Okay. Did she make any statements at all?
Jimmy told officers they had gone out that evening after dropping their daughter Ashley off at a football game. At a local bar, Embers, a heated argument broke out between him and Amy, something about their planned move to North Carolina. According to Jimmy, Amy was upset but not unstable. There's nothing in her background at all, he said when asked if she had a history of mental illness.
I was irritated, and I was like, I didn't hear anything, so I went back down and checked on her, and she's hanging from the extension cord. Like,
Does Amy have a history of mental illness or anything like this? Nothing in her background at all.
Later that night, after finding Amy, Jimmy called his mother. His voice broke. "I don't know what to do, Mom," he said. It was the kind of call you never expect to make.
We had an emergency. Don't go anywhere.
oh, I don't know what to do, Mom. I don't know what to do.
But as investigators began putting the pieces together, they found themselves asking a different question. Was this truly a suicide or something far more disturbing? The next morning, detectives returned to the Allen residence. Jimmy, along with his mother and daughter, had just come back from the hospital. But when they tried to enter the house, they were stopped. Police explained the home was now a potential crime scene. Jimmy appeared stunned.
Are you the husband? Okay. Right now, due to the nature of everything, with it being a hanging and all that, we've got to do some further investigating. So we're not going to be able to let you guys go inside right now.
We slept right here overnight.
I understand.
At 5 o'clock.
You didn't go up to the hospital?
Yeah, we were there, and he told us that she's not going to make it. The neurologist, like 4 a.m., said she's not going to make it as a formality, that they have to do another test 12 hours later, and that there's nothing they can do.
"I didn't know there was an investigation going on," he said, visibly restless. He told officers he hadn't slept and that every time he closed his eyes, he saw Amy's face hanging there. He couldn't understand why he wasn't allowed inside. "This is my home," he protested. "Now I don't even have a wife."
Well, and again, I'm not saying like that anybody had done anything wrong.
That's irrelevant.
But hold on.
I've already been here all night.
Sure.
Like, we got here at 5 a.m. and left at like 9 or 10. I don't understand what the urgency is now.
What do you mean?
I'm not understanding if you guys are conducting an investigation, wouldn't it be immediately following what went down? I don't, like, where am I supposed to go? What are we supposed, this is my home. I have nothing else. I don't even have a life.
But what concerned officers wasn't just his confusion, it was what he seemed focused on. Instead of asking what they'd found or what could have driven Amy to such an act, he kept returning to one question. Why couldn't he go back in? Though police hadn't accused him of anything, Jimmy became defensive.
But if, let's say, on the flip side, let's say that somebody did do something bad on the other side of town, and we let them go in and we go away, for us to do, would it make sense to you that that person would maybe have time to alter things
I told you I just spent
I understand.
That's what I'm saying. It doesn't make sense to me now that you're denying me access after after the fact.
Okay.
Maybe you want to check me and see if I have defensive wounds or some shit? I mean, what are you saying?
Check me for defensive wounds, he said. What are you saying? The tension was rising, and the more he spoke, the more suspicious things sounded. In the backyard, Jimmy went over the night's timeline once again. But with every detail, officers were growing more certain this wasn't just a family tragedy. It was the start of a mystery that would unravel everything they thought they knew.
You're not, let's be clear, you're not being accused of anything whatsoever.
Did you guys take her phone?
I don't know. I don't know what happened. The detail, like I said,
It was like, I got back this morning and I looked on, I turned her computer on to see if there's any messages or trying to piece together what the hell would urge her to do something like that.
The morning had started like any other in the Allen household. Around 7:30 a.m., Amy Allen sent her daughter Ashley off to school. Jimmy Allen, her husband, left for work, came home for lunch, and then went to rest. He had been exhausted. Just the night before, he returned from a 3-day work trip. He'd been up since 3:30 a.m., training for a marathon, running 10 miles before heading to work for a long shift that ended at 9 p.m. His boss had allowed him to leave work early that day, and Jimmy said he had spent most of the afternoon in bed, drifting in and out of sleep.
We were at JR's. We started having an argument, disagreement about life. I'd just come back from a 3-day work trip Thursday night at 9. I've been up since 3:30 in the morning. I've been training for a marathon. I ran 10 miles that morning and went at 6 a.m. and worked through till 9 p.m. at night. And got a ride back here at 9. Went to bed, had to be back to work at 8 to shoot a build video. My boss, Cedar, let me off at noon.
Ashley had brought her friend Kayla over after school. Around 6:30 p.m., Jimmy and Amy left to drop the girls off at a football game. After that, they went to a bar called Embers. That's where everything started to go wrong. According to Jimmy, they began talking about their future, about their move to North Carolina, and things quickly got tense. Amy, who was usually optimistic, had a different tone that evening. She sounded doubtful and negative, saying things like, "That's not going to work." Jimmy was confused and frustrated. He felt like she was talking about their future, as if it didn't involve both of them.
Basically slept kind of in and out all day on the bed. Ashley had a friend over, Kayla, after school, 6:30. We rolled out to take them to the game at 7. They wanted to get there a little early. We went to Embers, started talking about the rest of our lives and how we're going to do this, that, and the other. And she said a couple of times that, oh, that's not going to work. And she's normally positive and was sort of down and negative. And we started to disagree about it. And she's like, I hope that works out for you. And I'm like, what do you mean? I'm talking about our life.
After the argument at the bar, they left separately. Jimmy got into his truck while Amy walked off. A security camera later confirmed that at 7:51 p.m., she was seen walking away from the bar alone, down a dim street. Jimmy said he left through the back door and saw Amy walking across the street heading home.
7:38, we finished our beers, or I cashed out. I went to walk out the back door. She was behind me, and I just pushed it open like that, walked through as I just ticked, we both were just miffed at each other. Started walking to the truck. I look over, and she's walking across the street like, F this guy, I'm just going to walk home.
He decided not to follow her and drove to a friend's place briefly before heading home. Back at the house, Jimmy said he went upstairs to relax and turned on a Jim Carrey show on Showtime, trying to distract himself, but he couldn't settle. Moments later, Amy returned home. According to Jimmy, she slammed the door and walked straight to the basement. When he asked her what she was doing, she told him the only reason she walked home was because he slammed the door in her face. Jimmy claimed he didn't slam it, just didn't hold it open for her.
Saw her come in, slam the door, walk upstairs. She walked downstairs with a purse. I'm like, what the hell are you doing in the basement? Why are you in the basement? She goes, the only reason that I would have walked home is because you slammed that door in my face. And I go, I didn't slam it, I just didn't hold it for you.
Not long after, Jimmy said he went downstairs to talk things out. That's when he saw something that would stay with him forever, Amy, hanging in the basement. At that moment, he didn't know how long she had been there. He ran to her, panicking, trying to lift her up with one hand and loosen the cord with the other, but it was too tight. He said he attempted to set her on the edge of the Michigan-style basement to get the cord off her neck, but it didn't work. He described the scene as chaotic and terrifying. Eventually, he was able to lift her high enough to get the cord off the hook it was tied to. He let her fall to the ground and immediately checked for a pulse.
I just immediately picked her up like that, and then I tried to one hand hold her and grab the thing off of her neck, and it was just too tight for me to, I was just, wasn't able to do it. And then I grabbed her up and tried setting her on the Michigan basement edge a couple times to take the thing off so I could get it. I was just so panicked, I'm screaming and stuff like that, and I look up and it's on like an open one of those. You can see it down there hanging from that. So it's like a hook like this. So I was able to grab the actual cord off, lift her up and grab it off of there, and then let her fall to the ground, and immediately do that and started, check for a pulse.
He later told police that he believed her feet may have been on something like an overturned kitty litter bucket, though he couldn't be sure. Everything had happened so fast, and he was in shock. Jimmy insisted that there were no warning signs. According to him, Amy had never shown signs of mental illness. She had no history of depression, no medication, and no therapy. They lived a healthy lifestyle. They exercised, went rock climbing several times a week in Ann Arbor, cooked meals at home, and even grew their own vegetables.
I'm like I said, it was just so,
Sure.
I didn't even know, it just didn't even, I couldn't even process it, and it took me, 3 or 4 seconds just to, what is going on?
Yeah.
He described their home life as stable, and their finances were solid. Jimmy said he had a great job, the best one he'd ever had, and Amy stayed at home. To him, there was nothing about that day that suggested something was wrong. He even pointed out how Amy had eaten a huge burrito just before they went out, something he brought up to show how normal everything had seemed. He joked that he was too full to enjoy beer at the bar and wasn't even catching a buzz.
Ever tried anything like this before?
I've never had anything ever, no mental instability. We live a healthy lifestyle. We work out. We go rock climbing 3 times a week in Ann Arbor. We cook meals at home. We grow our own vegetables out here. She's not on any medications. None of us have, psychologists, psychiatrists.
Right.
Money trouble. No, this is the pinnacle of, best job I've ever had. I make great money. She's a stay-at-home mom. Here's a picture of her. This is...
Still, Jimmy admitted the night had been rough. He was tired, cranky, and short-tempered. Their argument left both of them upset. But in his mind, it wasn't anything new. They'd been together for 15 years and married for nearly 20. He described their relationship as strong, with the usual ups and downs, and claimed that any disagreements were nothing more than raised voices. According to him, there was never any physical violence or serious fights, just typical marital tension.
It wasn't even a pleasant, I wasn't getting a buzz or anything because I'm so full.
Sure.
It wasn't all that combined with me being exhausted and cranky and hurt and short, it was just turned into kind of a shit night that was I'm just going to call it and go.
Yeah.
And, anytime, we've been married 15 years. I got married when I was 20.
Yeah, it's not all...
we've had our bumps and ups and downs.
Everyone has.
But we've always just walked it off, and just keep on going. There's never been any physical anything between either one of us. There's never been anything where they're shouting and screaming, in 15 years like you would expect. I'm sure you're married and you've done your fair share of bickering.
Uh-huh.
So,
yep.
As police listened closely, they also began to focus on certain things. Jimmy seemed to dwell on minor details. What show he watched, what food Amy had eaten, even how full he felt. To them, it wasn't just what he was saying, but what he wasn't. And slowly the case began to take a different turn.
Because as you folks, it was that argument. excessive, or was it
Yeah.
from some arguments you've had prior? So you're saying
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Even in general, it wasn't even it was like it wasn't even be a bicker. Like that was just he was like, "You're just like him," and it was like, "Whoa, okay." That's sort of what brought the whole. Like I'm like this job. Here I signed a 2-year contract. I was like, I'll hang tight at this job through graduation, and like this is not going to be something I retire from.
As investigators searched for answers, they turned to the people closest to Amy, starting with her daughter Ashley. The teenager stayed with her father and grandmother while police questioned her. When asked about the day of the incident, Ashley said everything seemed normal when she left for school. She didn't recall any arguments or unusual behavior between her parents. She also said that her mother had never shown signs of depression or spoken about wanting to harm herself. To her, nothing seemed out of the ordinary.
Were your mom and dad fighting at all yesterday that you recall?
No, everything was normal when I left.
When you left? Okay. Is there a history of the fighting or arguing or anything like that? Nothing ever? Okay. All right. Has your mom ever talked about being depressed or, wanting to hurt herself or anything like that? Never ever? Has she ever told you about anybody wanting to hurt her? Nothing like that? Okay.
Ashley's answers mirrored those of her father, Jimmy. But despite the interviews, police were left with little information. There was no clear evidence to confirm whether Amy had taken her own life or if something else had happened. The only person who could have explained what truly went on was Amy herself. Tragically, she was unable to speak. After spending 3 days on life support surrounded by her family, Amy Allen passed away on September 17, 2018. She was just 34 years old. Although Amy was gone, the investigation was far from over. In fact, it had only just begun, and soon everything people believed about the case would be turned upside down. Amy's family refused to believe she had ended her own life. They told police it didn't make sense. Amy had adored her daughter, and they couldn't imagine her walking away from that bond. While they shared their doubts with investigators, they also revealed troubling details about Amy's life with Jimmy.
We went to the Tecumseh Police Department and spoke with them to let them know our thoughts and feelings and to find out what had happened from their eyes, their point of view.
You're going to ask me to believe that my daughter would have done that, left her daughter that she adored. That's not what happened. I don't believe it.
Soon after Amy's death, Jimmy moved to Ocala, Florida, with Ashley, the very place where he and Amy had first met. Meanwhile, detectives started to dig deeper into Amy's past. They learned she had become a mother at just 13, giving birth to a son named Caleb from a previous relationship. Her family claimed that Jimmy had isolated Amy from everyone, including Caleb. At just 17, Caleb had moved out of the house, describing a toxic and emotionally abusive environment.
So if I would get in trouble at school, their way of punishing me was I needed to sit on my bed and stare at the wall all day and night. I could come out to use the bathroom and to eat food, and I just said, I can't take it anymore.
According to Caleb, Jimmy was controlling and demeaning. He described how Amy was often belittled, and he himself faced physical punishment for speaking out. These accounts painted a disturbing picture, but investigators needed more than just stories.
She was not in the house again. My sister was in her room. We were in the living room. And I said, well, there's just some things you do that bother me. And he said, what would that be? And I said, for instance, how you called my mother over the phone. And he got very angry with me. And I can't remember, but I think, don't you ever say some stuff like that again. And I was in a computer chair. I turned away from him, and I curled up into a ball in the chair with my hands behind my head, and he struck me twice in the back of the head.
Eventually, detectives gained access to Amy's phone. What they found confirmed much of what her family had said. Amy had been isolated, but more surprisingly, they discovered Amy had been in a secret relationship with a man named George. Their messages, exchanged over 3 years, showed a different side of Amy, one that was hopeful and happy.
She was planning, meals and holidays and vacations. And obviously with George, she was planning to meet up with George the next month.
They were all very positive. I mean, she was a completely different person when she talked to George. She was happy. She was optimistic.
Even more unsettling was the discovery that Jimmy had been tracking Amy's movements. It became clear he likely knew about George. With everything now exposed, suspicion continued to grow and all eyes were on Jimmy. After Amy's death, Jimmy Allen returned to Michigan. Detectives called him in for questioning, hoping he might open up about anything he hadn't shared before. About Amy, their relationship, or even George, the man Amy had been secretly involved with. But before they could dig into the deeper questions, Jimmy began the interview with a confession of guilt.
Wasn't so inner focused and self-focused. Maybe I could have seen some things that were going on that maybe could have clued me in what my wife was in so much turmoil that I couldn't even see it. My wife essentially took her own life and she killed me too. I mean, that's how it feels. Like I don't even know who I am.
He admitted that he had been too focused on himself to notice that something might have been wrong with his wife. He felt like her death had taken away a part of him too. At first, Jimmy described Amy as a happy person with no signs of emotional trouble. But as the interview went on, his story began to shift. He suddenly claimed that Amy had suffered from social anxiety and had always been introverted. He said she struggled in social situations and had been that way for years. This directly contradicted his earlier claims that there had been no warning signs or mental health issues. As the questioning continued, Jimmy admitted to cheating on Amy once during their marriage. He claimed it was a one-time mistake. Then, when asked about the possibility of Amy being unfaithful, he insisted it wasn't likely. According to him, Amy was too shy and quiet to even hold conversations with strangers, let alone start an affair.
Does anything pop out at you as, yeah, my wife had some issues. And, what kind of issues? She struggled from, social anxiety, so, she's been like that for years. She's just extremely shy, introverted person.
But detectives had something that Jimmy didn't expect: solid evidence from Amy's phone. For over 3 years, she had been exchanging loving messages with a man named George. The relationship was more than emotional. She was planning holidays, talking about her future, and making arrangements to meet him. When this was revealed, Jimmy was visibly shaken. He had no idea she had kept such a big secret from him.
I went to the Isle of Man and hooked up with this chick.
Anytime during your marriage, do you know if she was unfaithful to you?
I don't think that would be possible.
Why is that?
She didn't seem to have the capacity to, talk to people, man. I mean, she was, incredibly introverted.
Though he tried to hide his reaction, it was clear the betrayal had hit him hard. Still, detectives couldn't say for sure whether Jimmy was involved in Amy's death.
There's a lot of stuff that she had tried to delete there, but, we're talking, telling this other guy she loves him.
I think that you
I'm not. I'm not going to lie to you today, and I haven't. So
I'll just tell you right now.
That answer wouldn't come until months later when the autopsy report arrived in December 2018. Strangely, the results didn't clearly prove whether Amy had been murdered or had taken her own life. But some things stood out.
Clearly there was something going on between these two people.
Right. Can you pull phone records to see if there's any numbers that I could see that I don't recognize? And that's to me, it's crushing to think that she even has some, I legitimately, I still just don't all the way believe you guys.
There was no DNA from Jimmy under Amy's fingernails, and he had no marks or defensive wounds. But his behavior on the night of her death raised red flags.
When he's up in the kitchen talking to his parents, he's got his face covered, and as soon as I would direct him to ask him a question, he would turn, the emotions turned off, just like a light switch.
When police and EMTs first arrived, Jimmy showed no tears or visible panic until officers started asking questions. Witnesses noticed that his emotions seemed to switch on and off as if performed.
So she's fighting. No.
More strange behavior followed. When EMTs told him Amy still had a pulse, his reaction wasn't relief. It was confusion. Later at the hospital, when doctors said Amy likely wouldn't survive, he showed little emotion and left soon after with Ashley. But the biggest hole in Jimmy's story came from the physical evidence. He claimed Amy was hanging from a cord in the basement, yet the ceiling was too low. Her feet would have touched the floor, and the cord itself showed no signs of ever holding a person's weight. To investigators, it looked staged. In 2021, after reviewing the full case, a pathologist finally gave a clearer answer. Based on the autopsy and police reports, they concluded that Amy's death was most likely a homicide. 3 years after Amy Allen's mysterious death, everything changed. Jimmy Allen, who had already moved on and was planning to remarry in sunny Ocala, Florida, was arrested. He faced multiple charges related to Amy's death. But even in the face of such serious accusations, Jimmy's behavior was cold and emotionless. He showed no interest in explaining himself and refused to answer most questions. Detectives informed him clearly he was being charged with open murder. From manslaughter to first-degree murder, all possibilities were on the table. But science had now shown something undeniable. Jimmy was responsible.
How do you sleep at night?
Well, I guess I don't understand that question. You have some serious soul searching to do, because I will tell you this much. You're being charged with open murder right now. And murder, or someone causing the death of someone else, has a wide range, kind of a, they have different forms, okay? From manslaughter all the way up to first degree murder. And I can tell you this much, sir. Science has proven that you were responsible. So you can deny it. Any denial on your part is a lie.
Jimmy chose not to say anything during the interrogation. The recording ended with him giving no response, even as officers told him the case against him was backed by scientific evidence.
Your side of the story goes a long way in deciding whether it's first-degree murder all the way down to manslaughter. I don't know. But I can tell you right now, you're looking at open murder. So you get with your attorney, you figure out, understand this. Science has proven that you're responsible. Okay? So you don't want to talk? We'll leave it at that. Do you have anything?
No.
Okay. You're starting off the recorder. The time is 10:25.
On September 9th, 2021, the time had come. Jimmy was going to trial for Amy's murder. During the trial, Jimmy's defense team presented their version of events. They claimed Jimmy had been watching television the night Amy died, suggesting he couldn't have been involved. They even brought in a respected pathologist who argued that Amy's death was consistent with a hanging. At first glance, it seemed like the defense had some ground to stand on. But then, the prosecution introduced a shocking twist. Amy's daughter, who had earlier said her mother had never acted strangely, took the stand and painted a completely different picture.
My mother overindulged in alcohol frequently, and she became intoxicated very easily and frequently as well, which would cause her to be not herself at all. She would be meaner and more violent.
She now said her mother often drank too much, got intoxicated quickly, and would act aggressive and mean when under the influence. She also described Amy as not being the kind of mother she had wished for. Her words hurt many in the courtroom, and they complicated the story further by giving the impression that Amy might have had her own struggles. Still, the prosecution wasn't backing down. They called first responders and neighbors to the stand, focusing on Jimmy's reaction the night Amy was found. Police body cam footage showed that he didn't cry or show distress, until officers began speaking to him. One officer noticed how Jimmy would turn on and off his emotions like a switch. It felt unnatural, forced.
I really didn't see any sort of the typical injuries around the neck that I normally would have seen in hanging.
No visible injuries.
No visible injuries. In your training and experience, having dealt with many suicides, is that strike you as odd?
It was a red flag.
Another red flag appeared when EMTs said Amy still had a faint pulse. Instead of relief, Jimmy responded with confusion. Even later at the hospital, when doctors informed him that Amy likely wouldn't survive,
I was choked from behind on the floor for multiple seconds. It felt like forever during the incident, and I was gasping for air, grabbing for anything, trying to get away from him.
he showed little to no emotion and left with Ashley not long after. To many watching, his reaction didn't match what you'd expect from a grieving husband. But the most damning evidence came from the physical scene of the crime. Jimmy had claimed that Amy hanged herself in the basement. However, there was a serious problem with that story. The basement ceiling was too low. Amy's feet would have touched the ground. Even more telling, the cord that was supposedly used to hang her showed no damage or stretching. It had no signs of ever bearing the weight of a full-grown adult. All of it suggested one thing: the scene had been staged. Investigators had more. A history of Jimmy's past behavior revealed a disturbing pattern. He had taken mixed martial arts classes and reportedly used dangerous chokeholds during arguments. One such move, known as the rear naked choke, had been used on Caleb, Amy's son from a previous relationship. Caleb testified that during one incident, Jimmy held him in a choke from behind until he was gasping for air. Then came George, the man Amy had been secretly involved with.
There was a little bit of sexual content. That's what we talked about.
Now, have you ever met Amy in person?
Yes, twice. I was here for work, and she had some free time, so she came to the hotel.
The things that happen at a hotel happen at that hotel?
Some things, yes.
Okay, sexual in nature?
Yes. I wrote, "I love you." And I wrote, "I want more of you." And she wrote, "I love you too. I'm ready to spend time with you in person." And I wrote, "Good. Let's do it." And then she wrote, "End of October." And I wrote, "I'm in."
Through phone records and messages, it became clear their relationship had been going on for years. Their conversations were filled with love, plans for the future, and desire to be together. They had even met in person at a hotel during one of George's business trips. Their messages showed that Amy was ready to start a new life with him. This added a possible motive. If Jimmy had discovered the affair, his anger might have turned deadly. But it was the testimony of Dr. Elizabeth Bucks, a forensic scientist, that delivered the most powerful blow. In court, she recreated the exact scene using the same cord, a 140-pound object, and basement measurements that matched those in the Allen home. Her test showed clearly that a person of Amy's size could not have hanged themselves in that basement. The cord had too much give, and the ceiling was too low. On top of that, Amy's neck showed no trauma, no marks, no bruising, no pressure points typical of a hanging. Simply put, it was physically impossible for Amy to have taken her own life in the way Jimmy claimed. The prosecution concluded that the scene had been staged to cover up what had really happened. All signs pointed to a violent confrontation between Amy and Jimmy after they returned home from the bar.
The first question that Detective Rothman asked was, can an extension cord suspend 140 pounds? The testing was performed. The answer is no.
Witnesses suggested that Amy had publicly challenged Jimmy during their argument, possibly embarrassing him. Once they got home, it appeared that the fight escalated, and in a moment of rage, Jimmy used a chokehold on Amy. That single moment turned deadly. On the 8th day of the trial, the jury delivered its verdict. While Jimmy was not found guilty of first-degree murder, he was convicted of second-degree murder, meaning the act was intentional but not premeditated. The sentence was 20 to 45 years in prison. But even then, Jimmy's reaction chilled everyone in the courtroom. He sat still, showing no emotion, with a distant look on his face, as if silently telling those who once loved him not to wait for him anymore.
Ellie, Jimmy's dad, called and said, basically, I got some bad news. Amy's dead. And I just broke down. I mean, it was crazy.
Amy's family and friends were left heartbroken. To them, she was more than just a name in a case. She was a mother, a daughter, and a loved one. Her life was cut short in a brutal and senseless act. While justice was finally served, the pain of her loss would never fully go away.